I get those goosebumps every time you come around, yeah. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those comments, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time I need the Heimlich, throw that to the side, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. When you're not around, when you throw that to the side, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. 713 through the 281, yeah, I'm riding. Why they on me? I'm flying, sipping low key. I'm sipping low key and honest, flying rider. I get those goosebumps every time you come around, yeah. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those comments, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time I need the Heimlich, throw that to the side, oh. I get those goosebumps every time.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Loading Mag NUFC, part 2 of tonight's double whammy, and it's away days. We are back in business, the old brand new Blaze in the house. A little bit worse for wear after the last weekend's antics up in Newcastle, but look, hey, we move. How are you, Mr. Chris Hall? How's things?
Very good, mate. Yeah, very good. Just got one eye on this City game. Annoyingly, they haven't got the Liverpool game on because I would have preferred to keep an eye on that one. But yeah, I'm all good, mate. I'm all good. Another busy day in work, but I should have booked some days off this week, like, because I'm still not 100%. You know what I mean? Following the weekend, but it is what it is. As you say, we move. So and yeah, really looking forward to this away days. Always enjoy away days, as you know, and obviously having Dan and Albert on is fantastic because love to speak to opposition fans, especially Arsenal at the minute, because it's quite an interesting topic. Arsenal, I'd say.
Not off, and already there's questions in the chat from people in there. Welcome all in already. Jordy Tune for Life joined us. Welcome Connie, Lisa for a double stint as our resident spanner. Jules, welcome back along with Craig Lee. Iris Mags in the house. Mark Todd back for his double whammy. PDK, welcome in as always, and of course Tom Dixon in for his double whammy, as well as including many more. Welcome to the chat. If you haven't already, click on the comment section and just put a question in for Dan and Albert, and we'll be getting them on very shortly. Chris, I've got to ask you, how big is this game for Newcastle United?
Yeah, it's pretty big, mate. I think more so not just for the points, but just for kind of what it means to us for the rest of the season. Because if we avoid defeat this weekend, and I'm gonna go in very cautiously by saying that if we avoid defeat, I think it will be a fantastic point or 3 points. And it's, as I say, it's more about keeping the confidence more than anything, because I think with Liverpool, on this good run that they're on, or lucky run, it's however way you want to call it, and with them having some very fortunate fixtures coming up, we've got to be very mindful that we don't want to give them an inch, do we? Because then the snowball effect will start. So as long as we keep doing what we do, we keep just plodding on, keep doing, picking up our points, then I think we'll be okay. But yeah, we remember what happened last season with Arsenal, but this season it's a very different Arsenal coming to St James's Park. I just hope that they're a little bit nervous too as well, which I'm sure Dan and Albert will fill us in on.
And let's get into it. I've just heard a cheer.
Oh, 1-0. Nathan Ake.
Okay. Yeah, I thought I heard a cheer. I was hoping it was Anfield and Fulham fans, but false hope and all that. But look, let's get the boys in, because I want to get their thoughts on all things Arsenal. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome back. It must be his hat-trick ball at least now. But welcome back from 12 Man Pod and top guy Dan Potts. Welcome in, Dan. How you doing, fella?
Hello, boys. How we doing? Yeah, really good. Oh, sorry, mate. Voice going there. Yeah, I'm all good, man. I've been rushing around, mate. I was like, Pete, I'm going to be a couple of minutes late. And luckily, it didn't matter. So that's all good. So, yeah, I've just heard that Manchester City have scored, apparently, which is great. I want them to win tonight, obviously. No, I'm joking. Yeah, I'm glad I'm here and not watching that because I can't see it here. I don't want to know what's going on. I don't care, man. It's done. It's done and dusted. So
it's all about Sunday. Let's focus on Sunday.
Yeah, man, that's it. It's all about that. Don't worry about West Ham. Aren't going to do us no favors, are they? Let's be honest. Jesus.
You're preaching to the choir. You know the score. And look, it's an absolute pleasure making his debut on Loaded Mag NUFC. And we have Albert JTV. How you doing, Albert?
I'll be all right, Pete, when I take myself off mute. What a way to cover debut. This is an away day that I've not had yet. So, yeah, man, buzzing to come on, man. Thank you for the invite.
No problem at all. It's an absolute pleasure. Great to have you on. And look, you know, obviously we need to talk about Arsenal. And Chris, you made a really, really good point. Is that you talk about, you know, how Arsenal might be feeling going into this game at St James's Park. So look, we'll fire that question to you boys. What is the feeling in the camp? You tucked away Chelsea nicely last night. Nice and easy, 3 points in the bag, put you back top of the league, whether it's periodically or not, but it puts you and continues to put you in the race. But how are you boys feeling as fans, and how do you think the team are feeling coming to St James's Park? Because let's be honest, this has been a topic of conversation about this particular game for a few weeks now, and people inside, outside the club have earmarked St James's Park as a game to be aware of. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that everybody will have PTSD from last year's ending. It feels like we've gone through this similar capitulation. Unfortunately, this time it's not to struggle to get into the top four, it's to struggle to go for the title. And I feel personally like this game is going to come at the wrong time for us. We got back to winning ways last night, Pete, but I'd fancy the four of us to beat Chelsea with their 11. I mean, they're absolute shambles. They are shockingly bad, mate. That's the easiest game I've seen Arsenal play in a long time. They are absolute relegation candidates. They're so lucky that they are 6 or 7 points ahead of where Tuchel got them, because they would be, in my opinion, under Lampard, going down to the Championship. And it's a shame because I would have loved to have seen it. But it don't look like it's going to happen, even if they lose the rest of their games. So that's given us a little bit of confidence that we've got ourselves back to winning ways, because it would have been a whole month without 3 points for Arsenal. It would have been losses and draws the whole time, other than the Leeds game, believe it or not, on April Fool's Day where we won 4-1. So it's the last time that we got a result other than last night. But I've always felt we'd lose this game on Sunday, and I don't really feel like there's anything that's done to change my mind on that, personally. I like the way Newcastle are playing. On my channel, everyone takes the mick and says that I support Newcastle as well. I don't. I've never had anything against them. But I actually do think that sometimes in football you can appreciate a good job, and I think that's certainly what Eddie Howe's done. I also like the way that Newcastle have not gone and spent 500 million on one transfer window, 500 million on another, and 500 million in the summer, which I think everybody expects you to do with a new ownership. So I've got a lot of time and respect for what you've done. I think you've done things the right way and not the crazy way. And I do think that it's one of the hardest grounds to go to anyway. But when you're playing well, it's even harder. The crowd, the atmosphere, the buzz, the fact that we've got a confidence knock. I actually disagree with what Chris says. I think this is a more important game for Arsenal than it is for Newcastle. Top four is pretty much wrapped up, in my opinion. I know you guys will disagree because you've not been there and all that stuff. But I think you've got to have a capitulation not to get top four now, in my opinion. This game, for me, I think is absolutely huge if we still want to have any chance of a title. We've seen what's happening tonight, that they've just scored against West Ham. So it looks now that we have to have the perfect end and just pray for a miracle. And I don't see any other result at St James's Park other than a Magpies win. And I've been saying that for about 4 weeks. So I don't know why I changed my opinion now.
Interesting take. But look, Albert, I've not got your opinions before on this particular game. Your feelings and thoughts going into game to be fair, Potts has said for a while he's always had the mindset that Newcastle will win this game. Do you share that same thought, or do you see it going sort of slightly differently?
Pete, how long have you got, mate? Yeah, let me try and I'll try and dissect it a bit. But you know what it is, when we had sort of the run-in, and me personally, and probably a lot of Arsenal fans pinpointed 3 games in particular. That was Liverpool away, City away, and Newcastle away. And I said Arsenal got to win one of them games. Simple. You got to get 3 points in one of them games. And the Liverpool game was painful. Obviously, the City game we got a humbling, and I think I'm being polite by using the word humbling. And then obviously we've got you boys on the weekend. Then I think if you'd have asked me this question, Pete, when Newcastle were, coupon drawing every week and getting, it's a different question. But when you're asking me the question now, I think you've got 1 defeat in 9, if I've got that right. You're scoring goals left, right, and centre. You've always been good defensively this season. And Arsenal's Achilles heel, unfortunately, and Potts will agree with me, in recent weeks has been our defence. We can't just stop conceding goals. You heard that stat a few weeks ago in terms of our home record. It's only Southampton and Leeds that are conceding more goals at home. You can't be going for a title race with that kind of record against you. It's just not good enough. And that was partly with Sleeper in the side as well, which I've got to add to that. But I think the biggest issue going into the game on Sunday is Arsenal's issue isn't scoring goals. If you just look at our goals for record in the league, even in the run that we've gone on where we haven't obviously picked up important key victories other than obviously than yesterday, we're still scoring a lot of goals. I think it's we scored about 15 in the last 6, but conceded 13 in the last 6. So it's not, we're kind of cancelling out the goal scoring. So I think Arsenal's biggest problem in going on Sunday is, and I mentioned yesterday on Judge's show, is Arsenal have got to keep it tight in that first 15, 20 minutes, man, because if they don't, it's going to be a long late afternoon at St. James's Park, because you guys are just scoring goals for fun. And the way you put Tottenham to the sword in 20 minutes was, yeah, they're a poor side, but that was frightening. That you don't be you're a good team. You go and do that to somebody at a certain level in the league. So I'm not confident really with the way Arsenal played. Anyway, yeah, good win yesterday. As Potsy mentioned, the worst Chelsea side I've seen. And Dan also as well. When you see Lewis next time, tell him to just tend to go on vacation, mate. I saw his video from last night, but
he's bitter, mate. He's bitter.
Yeah,
you can't hack it that Arsenal
are
where he wants to be. He can't hack it, mate.
Yeah, what a take. Honestly, I said, jeez, Lewis, mate, give it a break. But yeah, I'm concerned going into Sunday. I've got to be honest, man. Sometimes in life, Pete, it's timing, and this game coming up for Arsenal on Sunday, it's not great timing, man. Yeah, we got a little bit of confidence yesterday beating Chelsea, but like I said, it's the worst Chelsea side I've seen. They were awful. Met Potsy before the game. And I mentioned, like, coming to the ground, it was really flat, Pete. I personally felt that for Arsenal fans. I think mentally we're quite fragile at the moment, which understandably, but listen, big games of football, you need to turn up and show up. And if you want to apply the pressure and put it on the City, we've got to go to Newcastle and win. It's as simple as that. But am I confident that we're going to do it? On a scale of 1 to 10, at the moment, as I speak now, maybe a 5, mate, if I'm honest.
Wow. I never thought it would be this a couple of weeks ago, Chris. But yeah, the confidence doesn't seem to be there with Arsenal. And Dan made a point. He said, the pressure's more on Arsenal because in Potts' mind, the Champions League's done. Now, I know from our conversations on this channel that we haven't got that same sort of like feeling about the Champions League. We don't feel it's done. Liverpool are winning tonight currently. They then play again at the weekend against Brentford before we next play. There could be 3 points behind us, albeit we've got 2 games in hand. So in our minds, it's not quite done as such yet. But who do you think the pressure's on, in your opinion, from our perspective, from a Newcastle perspective going into the game? Do you think there'll be a little bit more pressure on Newcastle this time round, as opposed to last season when we went into this type of game at this similar stage of the season? Or do you still think it's all on Arsenal and we're just going to go and try and bulldoze them a little bit like what Albert said we did with Spurs?
Yeah, do you know what? Oh, sorry,
on,
Dan.
Chris,
Go on,
sorry.
mate. Sorry.
No. I was literally just going to say, like, Pete, when have you had pressure on you this season, man? I don't think Newcastle have. Like, Newcastle can't really lose this season. I've said this for a long time. Like, I had you down as maybe sneaking 6th, but I had you as 7th. So if you're going to finish 4th and you lose to Arsenal, oh no, capitulation. No, you're going to lose to Arsenal and you're just going to go and take 4th. So I think it's all pressure on Arsenal again, man. Like, this is you're going for a title. We're not trying to sneak top 4. This is what we wanted. This is what Arsenal fans have wanted. But what comes with that is pressure. And, we've already proven in the last few weeks we can't handle the pressure at Anfield, the London ground, Southampton at home, and we certainly can't handle it at the Etihad. And I think this St James's Park is going to be too big of an occasion yet again for 2 centre-halves of Kivior and Holding, because that's what it's going to be. Isak's going to have a field day. Trust me, Gabriel and Saliba are out. They are done. So it is going to be free at least.
And see, this was what I was going to come to next. Sorry, Chris. We'll come back to that.
No. Go on, mate. No.
I didn't want to answer that because a lot of talk has been said. Obviously, Gabriel limped off towards the end of the game last night, and Arteta said, he was a doubt for Sunday. Some people are saying he was out. Some Arsenal fans saying he was out. Some Arsenal fans are saying, it'll be all right. It'll be fine for Sunday. Just a little bit of a knock. How bad was it? It has there been an update on that? And are you genuinely convinced that it will be Holding and another in your backline on Sunday?
Go on, Potsy. Go on.
I mean, like, I don't know what you thought of it, Albert. I thought it was a shambles, actually, in a way that he stayed on the pitch for that long. I mean, He was down 4 times. I counted 4 times that he went down holding his groin, like holding his leg, sorry. So just get him off. What's he doing? Just take the guy off, man. He's clearly got a knock. He's trying to carry on. It looks bad enough to know that he'll miss Sunday. Whether it looked bad enough to be out for the rest of the season is another question, if I'm honest with you, Pete. Wow. But he's definitely a doubt. I'll be amazed if he plays because it didn't look like he was very comfortable whatsoever. And it's come out that Arteta has said that it doesn't look too good for Newcastle. Saliba's definitely out for the season. And let's be fair, everybody knew he was when he went down with his back pain, but no one wanted to say it just because we were going for a title race. So it will be Kivior and Holding as our only 2 centre-halves with no Tomiyasu. The only other thing that he could do is play Ben White at centre-back and play somebody else at right-back. But I'll be amazed if he does that, if I'm honest. I think he'll be Kivior left centre-back and Holding right centre-back. And they ain't ever played together. One of them definitely ain't good enough. The other is questionable. Gooners will tell you how great he is. Last night, he kept Aubameyang quiet. Well, he had 9 touches, so let's not get too excited. So we've got to see more of this Kivior kid before we start to get too gassed. But top Gooners will tell you he's going to be the next Cannavaro. Trust me, it's embarrassing, man. He's had 1 good performance against Chelsea, and that's all I've seen of him. So, yeah, I think if I'm Alexander Isak or Callum Wilson, I'm rubbing my hands together, if I'm honest.
Interesting. Does that change things for you, Chris, in terms of the pressure? Your thoughts and feelings going into the game. Is the pressure now with potentially without a centre back pairing on Arsenal, as Potts said, or are you still thinking there's a little bit more pressure on Newcastle?
To be honest, mate, I genuinely think the pressure at this present moment is all on Liverpool and Arsenal. That's genuinely how I see it, because I think with Newcastle, we've just, we're just happy to be here. And I think, what Potsy said is correct. Like, we're just happy to be here, and, we're all still pinching ourselves. And how many times, Pete, have we come on this show and we've gone, yeah, we've got it. Oh, I don't know if we're going to get it. Yeah, we've definitely got it. Oh, I don't know. And we can't believe it until it's like mathematically possible. Especially me, I've already spoken in the past. I said this months ago that like I had concerns around Liverpool because I obviously coming from the city and being surrounded by numerous Reds who are constantly crying it in all the time. I've constantly seen Liverpool do the unthinkable. And right now, the way the league stands, this is unthinkable for them to get top 4. So my head's saying that, it's going, they're not going to get it. They're not going to get it. But because it's Liverpool, because we've seen, like the Gerrard swing of the foot in the FA Cup final against West Ham, where no player in the world would have scored that goal, but it had to be a Liverpool player. We saw, at Istanbul, the Liverpool coming back from 3-0 down at half time against arguably one of the best Champions League 11s in history. It's all these little things and they all add up. But I constantly keep, getting loads of stick from all my Liverpool mates, and it's because they know that we're favourites to get it, and they're just hoping that we bottle it. And obviously, we're associated with famously bottling the league under Keegan, but this time I just don't think that we do bottle it. So me head's saying we'll be fine, and my heart's going, oh, I hope we are. But you've always got that element of doubt. But I do think the pressure's on Arsenal to win at the weekend, to hope that Man City slip up. And let's be honest, most people would say, oh, Man City, it's Man City's title. I think I've said it myself. But even just glancing over at this match and having watched the first half, like West Ham are still very much in it, and you can see that City are getting a little bit nervous. Yes, they've got the experience. Yes, they've won the league before. Yes, they've played in big matches. But there's a few new players playing for them this season who haven't won the league before, and the nervous as well. Pep will want to create history. He'll want to win the Premier League, the Champions League, the FA Cup, but he's still got to do it. And I think the players will be feeling the pressure. So I think all the pressure is on Arsenal to keep winning football matches and stay within a shout of getting the title. And obviously Liverpool to keep winning matches as well. I think at the moment we're just enjoying the vibe.
Definitely. And look, for me, I'm almost torn at times because, as you said, Chris, is that you've got the old mentality of Newcastle where you think something's going to go wrong, something's going to go wrong. I don't want to commit. Plus, when you're on when we're on the race for Europe and you're asking me the question every week, are you going to get Champions League? And are you going to? And I'm like, I want to be able to put out my chest. I think we deserve it as Newcastle fans to put out our chest and say we're going to do it. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm still almost partly in the old regime. But this Newcastle team, I should be more confident in them because they've been built differently this year. Mm-hmm. And Eddie Howe has built this team in a different way, a different mentality, a different way of performing that very little amount of teams in this Premier League have been able to handle this season. And I should be confident in it. And regardless of the result on Sunday, I should be looking at Leeds away, Leicester at home, Brighton at home, those next three, and thinking we should be picking up 9 points from that, which would see us well clear. Liverpool would have get nowhere near us at that point. So, I should be at that mindset. And I think, many people in the chat and other Newcastle fans, I think, have the same mindset right now. But look, I'm going to come back to this. I've asked you a few times, Pops. And I'm going to ask you again. I want to get Albert's thoughts on this as well. Is that, look, I know you guys don't want to talk about the fact that obviously, you could well lose the league this season. It's looking like it might well be the case if things stay as they are and results carry on as we expect with regards to Man City. But I want to ask you, and I asked you it on the last show on 12-Man Race for Europe, and I'm going to ask you again, what next for Arsenal? Okay, because it was really interesting that I was listening to your show on with Matisse, and you mentioned you sort of like next year, and I think there was a conversation with Lawless about Villa, and Villa won't finish above us, and we'll still be there. We'll finish second.
Deluded, absolute deluded he is.
And I want to ask you this question, not about Villa or anyone like that, but what's next for Arsenal? Because and I want to ask you both this because you might have different opinions on this. Are you then expecting, because of the amazing season that you've had, regardless of whether you're in the league or not, are you expecting to be back there at the table again, fighting for the league next season? Or could it be, and it happens, I'm not saying it's going to, but it happens. We've seen it before where teams have had title tilts and then dropped off the next season. What is next for Arsenal is the question I'm asking.
So what I expect to happen and what will happen is obviously two different things sometimes. I've always expected Arsenal to be challenging, and none of this top four malarkey. I've never, ever understood the obsession with coming fourth in a league. When I was growing up, we were winning it. And when we've spent $500 million on a squad, I expect to be competing again. Now that we are, and that people are still saying it's a process, process is over. It's done. We're here. Next season, there's a summer that's recruitment. That's not part of a process. That's just recruiting. We do that every year. We did that under Wenger and under Emery, and we've done it under Arteta. That's not part of a process. We've got rid of who we don't want. We've got in the who we do want, and there's still 6 or 7 positions that we need to strengthen on so that we have a squad and not a first 11, because we've got a first 11 which can compete in any single team. But you take one of those compartments out, Pete, and it goes to pot. You take Saliba out, completely kaput. You take Partey out, kaput. Jesus out, just about got by, but it was like, we need you back now, Jesus. Saka would be the same. There's nobody coming in. Every single cover that we have, other than Kieran Tierney, potentially a fit Smith Rowe, and potentially a fit Tomiyasu, everybody else is a huge downgrade on what we've got in that first 11. So whether it's Matt Turner, Eddie Nketiah, Reece Nelson, Fabio Vieira, Jorginho, we've got a huge downgrade. So we need to prevent that now in the summer. And when we hear names like Moses Caicedo and Declan Rice and Rasmus Højlund and Diaby's and these kind of names, it of course excites us because they're the type of names that we want to be linked with. So that should happen next to Arsenal. What next? In terms of a position next season, we're challenging again. There's none of this, football can change. Let's just make sure we get in the top 4. No, like the ambition is to go and win that title. What were we short this season? Whatever we were short, we add and we go again. Now, competing with Manchester City is ridiculously hard. I'm not going to be naive enough to expect us to win the league every single year, but I do expect to be challenging every year, because we were told in 2002, when I was a young kid, that we were going to be moving to the Emirates Stadium at Ashburton Grove one year to compete with Real Madrid. And I've not seen us compete with Real Madrid in 19 years. So now that we're finally competing with Manchester City at the very top, which was a team that wasn't even in the league at that time where they told us that, we're now competing with the big boys. I think I look at our form, and in the Champions League, I look at the clubs that have been competing at the top, and I like our form in comparison to them. Now, a lot of people will sit there and say, but you lost to Brighton in the League Cup, you lost to Man City in the FA Cup, and you got booted out by Sporting Lisbon. How are you going to compete in the Champions League? Well, by having a better squad than having to pick a Europa League squad, which weren't good enough to beat Sporting Lisbon. So I think it's clear and obvious where Man City are stronger than us. It's not their first 11, it's their squad. And they've got a manager who knows what they're doing, a striker who's lethal, and a squad that's strong. Now, we can't compete with the manager because he's the best in the world. We can't compete with Haaland because he's the best in the world, but we can bolster the squad. So we've just got to make sure that we do all we can, and it's not, let's just hope Man City drop points, because they're not going to. We know this. Tonight everyone's getting excited. 45 minutes, I've got gooners on WhatsApp. Oh, it's 45 minutes, 0-0. Calm down, lads. It'll be 1-0 soon. I jump on here, boom, 1-0. So let's just calm. Like, it is. That's how. Oh, it's now 2-0. Yeah, so that's how lethal they are. Yeah, I'm not going to sit there and say I'm surprised West Ham apparently got their reserves out, but it's a shame that we've done this to ourselves, because this is Manchester City being great, but Manchester City haven't had to win 4-0 in every single game to be top. They've had to just scrape past games. It's us that's collapsed. So we've got to improve that, and the squad depth hasn't been there. So you ask what next for Arsenal? Recruitment in the summer and a title challenge next season. And we have to win something next season, Pete. If we come third or second and there's nothing to show for it again, people are going to start to point at this manager and go, 700 million spend, mate. What have you actually got to show for it? Because you won an FA Cup with Unai Emery's squad. So since you spent 700 million or whatever it's going to be in the summer, from that day forward, what have you actually done? So I get that. I understand why there would be concerns. He's done unbelievable. He's done great things off the pitch. I need to start seeing him winning games on the pitch and winning trophies now, because otherwise people are going to ask, where is this process going? I've seen on tweets today, we're only in phase 3. I mean, this is what happens. We do ourselves no favours. We are only in phase 3. It's taken 4 years, by the way. We're only in phase 3. What? Of how many phases are we in? What's phase 4 look like then? And when does that finish? No one was saying this was phase 3, by the way, when we were 8 points clear. Everyone was saying, look at this unbelievable squad. Now we lose to Etihad. We're only in phase 3. It was only top 4. Top 4 was the only aim. And I just think, shut up, man. Like, it's just embarrassing, isn't it? It just really is.
I'd love to know what phases they were. I'd love to know how many phases there are. To be honest, but Albert, Potts has actually touched on a little bit of what I was going to come to you with, because going into next season, you start the season, you drop a few points here and there. Is Arteta under pressure in your eyes? Potts just said he needs to win something next season. Is there pressure on him if you don't have a blistering start to the season like you did this season with Mikel Arteta?
Pete, there's always pressure, mate. Arsenal Football Club, we're a sleeping giant, man, and that's the truth of it. I hear what Potsy's saying in regards to it does drive me mad, because I even go back to Pete, like the end of last season, when you beat us and we played Newcastle. We probably played Everton last game of the season. The Emirates was like a morgue. And you having Arsenal fans debating after the game, talking about, but if at the start of the season, if you'd been offered fifth, I'm like, you guys have got to be serious here, man. Like, you've seen the way the season has gone. We've had it in our hands to cement top four, and Arsenal blew it with the results, obviously, against Tottenham and Newcastle, which were the hammer blows why we never got it. So I'm like, okay, we finished fifth, but we're not where we want to be. If you're a fan, if you're a fan of the club and you're happy with that, then fair play. But I'm not happy with that. I don't need to scream and shout about it, but I can definitely tell you I'm definitely not happy about that. And sort of fast forward into what you're saying about Mikel Arteta. They're always going to be pressure anyway. But obviously, what's happened this season, it's going to be ramped up even more. But listen, when you're the manager of Arsenal, and you manage our club, and with our history and our DNA and the rest of it, this is where he wants to be. So pressure as a fan, personally, I hear what Potsy's saying. I think my issues, Pete, sort of coming into this summer, and actually what's different this summer is Arsenal fans for the last 6-7 years, maybe longer. Oh, every summer transfer window is a big transfer window. I say no, it isn't. I said this one now, because we have Champions League football. Now we're going to see the type of caliber of player we're going to attract. Because what I don't want, and I'm only speaking about a section of certain Arsenal fans, is that what they do is, for example, like, listen, we've got a brilliant 11 or 12, 13 players, right? But if you actually scratch the surface and look at our bench for players to come in, it's an issue. And I've had this debate with some Arsenal fans before. You say, we got, it's good to keep certain players that are at the club and they can bring them in for squad depth. Okay, Rob Holding comes in. Some of you Arsenal fans wanted him here. If it's down to me, he wouldn't be here. But he's what we've got, Pete, and he played, right? Yeah. We know the shortcomings. Mohamed El Nene's still here. Okay, cool. He's been injured for the season, but Arsenal fans can't have it both ways. You've got to want better than what we've already got. Because if you're talking about moving on to the next echelon of winning league titles or winning trophies, as Potsy's mentioned, we can't have these players as backups coming in. We've seen what's happened in this tail end of the title run. Some of the guys that have come in, unfortunately, the fringe players, when we've needed them, and we talk about squad depth, unfortunately have not cut the mustard. With the exception of
what frustrates me with that, and you're bang on, man. What you're bang on, like, so there's a section of the Arsenal fan base that are the most deluded bunch, man, and I can't get through to them. They're 1 minute so let's give you an example. In the summer, we signed Jesus and Zinchenko, right? And I said that's a good start. Unfortunately, that was where it ended, right? So I gave it a 6 out of 10 window. I said, right, we're still short here, here, and here. No, we're not. Negative, toxic. Get down the lane. Get down. That's all they say. Get down the lane, which means go and support Spurs, right? With that attitude, go and support Spurs. I said, well, I'll give it a 6 out of 10 out window. We're not quite there. Same in January. Thought Trossard was a wicked signing, right?
Yeah.
Jorginho, yeah, all right. He's come in. He's got some experience. Where else? Where's the striker? Because we've only got Jesus, right? Eddie's keeps coming on, trying to do his best, bless him. But it ain't going to work. We've got no cover for Saka, no cover for Saliba. Wow. Now that's hit that, all of a sudden we've got no Saliba. Where's the Saliba cover? Well, I told you, we didn't buy anyone, And then they'll say, after giving it an 8 out of 10 window in both, and 9 out of 10, one of them give it a 9 out of 10 window.
Yeah,
thought, Jesus. Well, we haven't got enough squad. That's why we ain't won the league. We ain't got a big enough squad. I thought, don't give it an 8 or 9 out of 10 then. Like, what's going on here? How can you give a window a 9 or 8 out of 10 window and then moan that the squad's not big enough. I mean, that is clueless. Do you know what I'm saying? So we are in a very, very bad, in my opinion, we have had, I would say, a poor transfer window for the most part, other than one window under Mikel Arteta. And the summer one was a good window with Jesus and Zinchenko.
Yeah.
We haven't had great transfer windows. We've had we've put a great team together. We've put a great first 11 together. But it's taken four seasons and like nearly 8 transfer windows now. So we have to have in this summer. We can't have this. We'll buy Declan Rice and one more, and everyone will absolutely lose their heads and go, "Wow, the title's ours." That still ain't enough.
Dan, on top of that, and Peter, well, another key thing, and this is spoken about a lot with Arsenal in terms of. I know the initial question was about Arteta and pressure. That's going to come. Some of our fans can't stand him, even in this season. Trust me, but that's another conversation. But Arsenal's issue is. And it is a concern, I don't know how Potsy feels, is that Arsenal are not very good at getting the #1 targets.
No.
And even if we'd have gone on to win the league, the plausible question would be to ask Edu and Richard Garlick and whoever else, what is going on here? Because there's certain areas of the pitch that need to be addressed, i.e. centrally. Now, why I say this is such a big window is because we're back in the Champions League. Now, there's blatantly, it's quite obvious to me there's certain areas of our team and squad that need to be improved, right? Centrally is one of them. We need to go and get a front man. Now, if you have to go and break the bank for a Victor Osimhen, then you go and do it. Because that's what we need.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We've done, to be fair to the guys that have been here this season, like goals by committee, we've been fantastic. But if you want a goal getter, someone that's going to get you 20, 25 goals a season, I think it'd be difficult to get him at Napoli, but at least try. You know what I mean?
Ambition's got to be there.
It's ambition, exactly. And not only that as well, it will improve the squad and you'll get the fans on site.
Albert,
yeah, that's a concern for me.
Just to ask, and same question to Dan as well. Are you both quite pleased that you missed out on Mudryk? Or do you think that it's just not worked out?
I think it's a bit too early, Chris, if I'm honest. And I mean, Messi would look shocking in that team. You know what I mean? So it don't look great, if I'm honest. And to me, what frustrates me is that we don't get our plan A. Whether Mudryk was the guy, I actually prefer Trossard. I think he's Premier League proven, hell of a lot cheaper, and wouldn't have needed time to settle in. So it's all good. But I do get frustrated when we get links with Vlahovic, plan A, doesn't happen. Mudryk, plan A, doesn't happen. Moses Caicedo, plan A, doesn't happen. So I'm fearful going into the summer that would be linked with Rice and end up with Curry, mate. Do you know what I mean? It's like, honestly, it's mad. It is mad, honestly.
Dan, I've said this for weeks. I would listen. I'd drive to East London and bring Declan Rice. I love him, but Pete, gut feeling, I'm not in the know. I don't think we'll get him.
Really?
Nope.
Because everything's been highlighted towards you. Like, I'll be honest with you, and Chris, you can testify to this. There's only 2 teams that have really been linked with Declan Rice: Arsenal and Newcastle. There's the 2 teams that have been linked with him, and I don't genuinely believe that we'll pay the sort of money that they want to get him out of West Ham. But I don't know. I just assume that he's going to come to you guys. But it's interesting you say you don't think you'll sign him.
I think we could get him. I really do. I think this is our priority that I'm hearing. Yeah, you're back now, Pete. I think it's the one that we want. Bellingham going to Real Madrid is a very interesting one. I'm really pleased. I didn't want to see him going to City or Liverpool at all. So I'm really happy he's going there. There was links with Declan Rice to follow him. That was a link. I don't know how much of a rumor that was. I think if he wants to have a incredibly bright future, then Arsenal and Newcastle won't be a bad option for him, because I do think both of the teams have got a bright future. If I was him and I had the London pool that he's saying he wants, then of course Arsenal's the option. But if I was actually really thinking about history of recent times, Newcastle might be a better option for him. And I'll tell you why. Manchester City and Chelsea, players of Declan Rice's situation, were going to Man City and to Chelsea because they knew at the age of 24, you'll have trophies by the time you hit 30. And that's exactly what Declan Rice will be guaranteed if he goes to Newcastle. I'm not sure you can guarantee it with Arsenal. I know for a fact everyone says, oh, it'll be ages yet. It won't be. Newcastle will. Everybody said this about Chelsea and Manchester City, and within 2-3 years, they were winning League Cups, FA Cups, and then it went to Premier Leagues, and then when it went to Champions Leagues. And obviously, Man City is still waiting for that and might even get it this season. So Declan Rice would not look at Newcastle and laugh at it and go, no, thank you, I'll have Arsenal. He wouldn't. He would be very, very interested in both. I really believe that.
Do you know what, Dan? That's something that, like, I wouldn't say like a lot of our fan base, but some of our fan base, saying the likes of things such as, why are Newcastle fans talking about Declan Rice? Declan Rice wouldn't be interested in a move to Newcastle. And I think the only thing that stops Declan Rice moving to Newcastle is Newcastle looking elsewhere because maybe the package for Declan Rice is too big. In terms of Declan Rice being interested in Newcastle, I agree with you. I think Declan Rice would be silly not to be interested in Newcastle. And we've gone through all the other clubs, haven't we, Pete? Like Dan has, like City, Chelsea, Liverpool, Tottenham, Man United. Yeah. So a lot of those clubs won't be interested in him. And I think, and even if they were, would he be looking at it and thinking first team football, the trajectory we're on? I don't see why anyone wouldn't want to join Newcastle, especially with Champions League football. But as Dan said, I don't necessarily think he will join Newcastle, but I think if we were interested in him, I think it'd be an option, and I think he wouldn't just dismiss it like some people suggest he would.
Chris, you know what's mad? Yeah, because Dad would testify with this. So, sometimes our Arsenal fans drive me mad. Like I've had not arguments, but like when the links with Declan Rice, for example, right? Maybe it's the whole English thing. People get really, really caught up on it, but. I'm not too sure about Declan Rice. I said, "Are you crazy?" I said, "Look," I said to him, "Go back and watch him play, right, for England in that quarterfinal against France in the World Cup, and come back and tell me you don't want Declan Rice.
Facts.
You must be out of your mind."
If he would have been in a France shirt, though, Albert, that night, everyone would have been going, get him in. Who is this player?
He's been at Real Madrid by now. Real Madrid would have signed him. You know what I mean? Yeah. I looked at some stats today. For all the midfielders outside of the traditional top six. I couldn't believe it. He's smashing the stats. And I was just like, you got Bruno Guimaraes that isn't far off him, to be fair. Yeah. And there's one or two others that are in and around that conversation. But I was like, wow, like this guy is putting out.
And he's only 24. He can get a lot better as well. Like, he's a good age. Yeah.
It's a great age. I've got to be honest, it's a great age. It certainly for us when we've got Bruno Guimaraes who's what 25 years old. It's like the thought of bringing someone in like that of that ability. You've got your midfield set for the next 6-7 years. Let's be honest. But it's the same situation for Arsenal. So it's a really interesting situation. I personally think that Arsenal and Newcastle are going to be shopping in the same aisle in the summer. I genuinely believe it because you already mentioned a couple of players in the last few weeks and one tonight as well. In addition, you've talked about James Maddison. He will be one that I know Arsenal will look at. I know we're obviously really interested in. But you mentioned tonight Moussa Diaby. Now, if you get Moussa Diaby and we don't, I'll be pissed because he is the guy that we should have got last summer, but Leverkusen didn't want to pay up or accept the bid. We wanted to pay up. We had the money there ready to go, but.
There's loads though, Pete. Tielemans, Maddison, and obviously Declan Rice. We've mentioned Moussa Diaby. I think that you're right. I think we will be shopping in the same. But I have to say it, like if you mention those names right now, is James Maddison going to get first team football at Newcastle? Yes. Is he guaranteed it at Arsenal? Should be, but maybe not the way we play. Odegaard is the guy at the moment. Tielemans, is he going to get ahead of Xhaka? He probably should do, but will he? Like Arteta loves him. He definitely would get ahead of Willock. So, you know what I mean? Like, it might be that Newcastle is just that option that they think, do you know what? Like, Arsenal might win me a title next season, but Newcastle are definitely going to win me that in a couple of years. I'm only 24. I'm going to go there. And I think you've got that on your side, man. I really do.
So look, we'll switch it over to Newcastle just for a little bit. Like from an outsider's point looking in, I want to get your opinion on this, Chris, from a Newcastle fan as well. that we've had a season we didn't expect. Okay, we're sitting third in the league, very, very close to Champions League football. As I've said to you guys, and Chris, you know this as well, I had this down to getting anywhere between 10th and 8th this season. I'd have gone, yeah, that's progress. Finished 11th last year. We're now sitting in third. Looking at what we're guaranteed to play European football of some sort, having won on Sunday. We're in Europe, likely to get Champions League. What do you think needs to be next for Newcastle United from your perspective, if we're building as you're building in the same way to potentially be title challengers in the next year or two, maybe even 3? Albert, I'll start with you. What do you think is next?
You know what? When the start of the season, or when Eddie Howe come in more so, shall I say? Because I mean, I look at some of the managers obviously you had previously before that, and one thing you always got to start from a solid basis defensively, and your team's been outstanding. I'll just quickly looking at it now. I think you know what I mean, goals against 27 this season. That's seriously impressive, man. You had a few draws in there, but I think the thing that I've been impressed with, Pete and Chris, is yes, Isak costs a lot of money, all right. But if you actually look at a lot of your signings, they've been very, very shrewd and very, very smart buys in areas that you probably would say that you needed to sharpen up on. Wilson's still there, and he's experienced, and he knows the Premier League. Isak's obviously had a bit of an injury at the time when he's at Newcastle, but he's come back and he looked amazing. I mean, that run against Everton, I was flipping hell, man. What this team have got a player. Ramirez has come there and done bits. I actually think Anthony Gordon, give him another season under Newcastle, he will be a major asset to you. I like what I saw a bits of him at Everton, but you know what? Under Eddie Howe, and you've got a team of athletes. Like I would never want to play against your midfield. I definitely wouldn't want to play against your defense. Like Dan Burn's not even a left back, but he's been outstanding this season. It'd be interesting to ask you guys in terms of like even now, like who you think has sort of been your player of the season, but also as well, kind of thing. I look at it is that even when you have a good season, whether you're going for a league title or you're trying to secure Champions League qualification or European football, and you look at your team and you think, oh, you know what, we've done well this season, but you know what? There's still areas in the first 11 as well as the squad that you know what, he's been good, but we can sort of upgrade. I don't know what them players would be for you guys in terms of at Newcastle, but I think look, you're back in not just that you got European football, you got Champions League football, more exposure, better quality of player. Like at the moment, like you guys, the world's your oyster, man. Look, next season, I think it's just a case of consolidating consistent Champions League football. And then title talk, I guess that depends, to be honest, over your next couple of transfer windows. And what I mean couple of transfer windows, coming into next season and the season after that. Because, you know, it's building blocks, isn't it? Because obviously you guys have seen a period of football where you weren't happy as fans, the ownership thing, the football that was being played. And it's completely chalk and cheese now. Like, Potts will understand where I'm coming from in terms of Arsenal this season. Like, it's been a joy to go to the Emirates this season. The football's been fantastic. I can't say that about a number of years as an Arsenal fan where I can turn around and say that. Whether that was the latter years of Wenger, Emery, that's another story. Obviously, the first stint of Arteta. But, yeah, I mean, listen, it's from what I see as an outside looking in, it's looking good, man. Like I said, yes, you can chuck the book at it and bring in the right players, identify the right players, but it's about being shrewd as well. And if you can sort of keep those two things together in a transfer window, then listen, man, it's all good from where I've seen from your club's point of view.
No, it's an interesting take with regards to that, and we are going to need to build slowly but surely. And that's for sure. I don't know, Chris, from your perspective, you know, just before we get to a few questions, because I know, Potts, you've got to go soon, and I want to ask you a couple of questions before we leave. You know, just on Newcastle's point of view, you know, what do you think needs to happen, you know, even in the short term, so the beginning of next season, what needs to happen for Newcastle?
Do you know what? I think it's all about consolidation. I mean, it's going to be really difficult for us to play Champions League football next season and then aim to be in the Champions League the following season. I think that's going to be the biggest challenge. Because if we can do back-to-back Champions Leagues, we'll see what that will be able to do for us over the space of 4 transfer windows. It'll just be huge in terms of building the squad up from where it is right now. I think having a a couple of another good cup run next season would be great. And I just hope we don't. When I say embarrass ourselves, I don't mean that, but because it won't be an embarrassment no matter what happens in the Champions League, because really we shouldn't even be there. But for me, just as long as we give it a good go in the Champions League, that would be good for me. So a good league finish, giving it a good go in the Champions League, and then who knows, maybe trying to get to Wembley again. That for me, that would be the biggest success. Very, very difficult given the size of the squad and probably some of the quality within the deeper end of the squad. But that would certainly be the challenge for me going into next season.
Okay, no, I would agree. I think some really good points there, for sure. Dan, I'm going to throw a couple of these questions to you. Really, really quickly. One from Carl. Would anything other than a win end Arsenal's title hopes?
Yeah, I mean they're ended already. If I'm honest, we threw it away at Southampton and West Ham. Not even at the Etihad. It was already done before that, in my opinion. The only chance we had was beating Man City. Then we might have got a glimmer. But no, it's done, mate. Anyway, but if we win, then it just gives us a little bit more of a glimmer of hope that Man City might mess up. But if we anything but that, then yeah, it's proper nail in the coffin time.
Okay. 132 in the chat. If you haven't clicked the like button and subscribe, make sure you do so. Jordan Team for Life says, Dan, if you could sign any one player from Newcastle, who would it be and why?
Bruno Guimaraes.
I wasn't expecting you to say that.
Player I wanted in January ahead of I say ahead. We didn't get anyone in that January window. I really wanted him. I really, really wanted him. I think he's a top talent, and I think sliding next to Thomas Partey and with Ødegaard, I think it would be a massive upgrade on Xhaka, who's been very good this season. But for me, it just controls. I know in the chat everyone says Joe Linton. I don't watch Newcastle every week, so I'm sure he deserves to get Player of the Season. But for me, Bruno Guimaraes is just different level, mate. Absolute different gravy, and I'm a massive fan of Isak. Pete knows that. I wanted him. I love him. I think he's a top talent. And they were comparing him to Henry the other day, saying about the attributes. And I got it. I'm not saying he's going to be as good as Thierry Henry, but the attribute-wise. Is it? Oh, right. There he goes. Is Isak the new Thierry Henry? For Newcastle's sake, I hope he is. He's got attributes. He's got the power. He's got the pace. He's got the finishing. He's got the technique. I don't think you'll see another Thierry personally, but even if he's half as good, you've got one hell of a talent there, mate. I tell you that he's top quality.
And last quick question before I want to get your prediction before you go.
Sure.
PDK put, do you really think the Conference League is a Mickey Mouse Cup, or is it just because West Ham could win it?
Oh God. Listen, Lawless will have it's like, he actually said the other day on last week's show that he's going to start. He said, I'll never be able to sing Champions of Europe, but he will at the end of the season. I mean, he's actually going to sing Champions of Europe if he wins that bloody thing. It's simply how embarrassing it is. But listen, it is a Mickey Mouse Cup. It's got a chance for little teams like West Ham to play some European teams. That's the way I see it. If anyone wins that cup and starts celebrating it, then wow, you really are desperate to win a trophy. That's the way I see it. It's an embarrassing competition. I don't know why it's there. It's just mad. It's really poor that is actually about, isn't it? Just either have one competition. I'd rather even scrap that Europa League and just play one European competition. Just go Champions League and just go for more playoff rounds, whittle it down and go for it, man. Like, why do we have to have three European competitions now? There'll be another one soon, so that Brentford can get in because they've had a good season. Let's get them to play in it, and they can go and play Getafe or Levante or someone like in Europe. It's just, no, not for me, man, not for me.
I knew we'd get that answer. But look, Potts, I know you need to leave us. Albert, are you okay for another 5 or 10?
Yeah, go on, man. Go on. Keep going, man.
Potts, just before you go, I want to get your prediction for Sunday. What you've already said, you think Newcastle are going to win, but what do you think the score's going to be?
3-1 Newcastle. I fancy us to capitulate again. up at St James's. I don't see our back line being strong enough, mate.
No,
Whoever
it's not.
plays, if I'm honest with you, and I think that although we might be able to control some of the midfield and have an option with Saka and Martinelli, they haven't looked themselves. Jesus hasn't, in my opinion, looked as lethal, although he has been in goal scoring form. He has been quite wasteful. But I think for me at the back, they're just gonna be too good for us with Kivior and Holding and Zinchenko, who hasn't been able to defend for the last few weeks. So yeah, I think you'll be able to get behind us, and yeah, I think it'll be 3-1 Newcastle, man, and a bad day for Arsenal.
We shall see. But look, Potts, as always, absolute pleasure for you joining us. I will see you tomorrow night.
Yes, mate.
On the 12th man race for Europe.
10 p.m.
To talk all things Newcastle and hear Lawless's crazy takes again.
Oh my God, that guy.
Potts, you take care, my man. We'll speak to you soon.
Layers. Cheers, Chris. Cheers, Albert.
Take care, mate.
In a bit, guys. In a bit.
Top man, as Potts as always, and big up Albert. Thank you for sticking with us. And look, we would normally different type of show tonight because obviously of time constraints. Normally get a tactics board out and talk a little bit of tactics. We're not, because we've got so many questions that are popping up right now. So I want to get as many questions out there for you. However, I just wanted to say from my perspective what I think the team will be for Newcastle on Sunday. We've talked a little bit about Arsenal's team. We think it might be a changed back line. But from a Newcastle perspective, I think the big question has been, Chris, is that is it going to be is it going to be Gordon in the team? Is Alan Maximin back? What are we saying? Is it going to be Isak on the left and Callum Wilson starting up front? I actually think we're going to revert back to type, and I can fully expect to see, in my opinion, Joe Linton on the left and Willock, Bruno and Sean Longstaff reinstalled into that midfield. Are tried and trusted. It's what's won us a lot of games recently. And I genuinely can see Callum Wilson on the bench again. And a lot of people will say will be surprised by that, but I genuinely think that will be the case. And Isak will start the game, and we've got the firepower to come off the bench if needed to turn the game around. That's my opinion. Chris, what do you think about that? And have you got a different take on the potential starting lineup?
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, Pete. I totally see where you're coming from. I think it's only fair. We're taking turns, aren't we? It's only fair that Callum Wilson starts. So I personally think Callum Wilson will start. And you're right about Joe Linton, because I think if Eddie had a full fit squad to pick from, I think he would actually start Joe Linton on the left. My only concern would be if Sean Longstaff's out, because if Sean Longstaff's out, Big Joe will have to play in the middle, and then we could see Anthony Gordon. Yeah, do you know what? I nearly said Elliot Anderson then. I don't know why. I feel like he's going to throw a curveball. I don't know why.
That's what I think the curveball is going to be, because everyone's talking about Isak and Wilson on the left.
It's too predictable. Too predictable.
And I think the curveball could well be we revert back to type. And like I say, I'm saying that team because I think Longstaff will come back in because we've missed him, on the understanding that he's training this week and he'll be ready. But if not, I do think there is going to be that potential to change something if that is the case.
Do you know what? I'm going to stick with Elliot Anderson, because if we remember, Elliot Anderson started against Liverpool at St James's, because I don't think anyone will be expecting Elliot Anderson to play, and he's a bit of a live wire, a bit of an unknown quantity.
Yeah,
that genuinely wouldn't surprise me. I don't think Anthony Gordon will start. I think he's going to probably come on as an impact sub, maybe 60, 65 minutes. I don't think he'll throw him into the melting pot again. Not to say that he did bad against Southampton, because I don't think he did. I know some people said, he's not good enough, etc., but I don't agree with that at all. I just think he needs a little bit of time. So yeah, do you know what? This is probably one of the first times in a long time where he could spring a surprise on us. But one thing I am adamant about, Pete, like you are, Alexander Isak won't be starting on the left, if starting at all for me. But he definitely won't be on the left, because Arsenal will prepare and expect that, and I just don't see it happening.
Interesting. 140 in the chat. Make sure you get those likes, those thumbs up. Let's get us well over 100 because we've got nearly 140 plus in the chat already right now. So make sure you click that like. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, I've loads of new subscribers tonight. Lots more to come. Click that subscribe button and come and join us. Today, we've got lots of different content coming up as well. Albert, I'm going to come to you really, really quickly. There's a great question from Craig Lee. What does Dan think of Edu and Albert think of Edu? And has the 500 million Arteta spent been good value or wasteful?
There's always elements of a spend that are going to be wasteful. Just look at Chelsea. So I think that's the easy way to answer it. But there's been some positive buys. Look, I understand people with Arsenal talk about is we should start looking at the character of the players, which Tony Adams has spoken about for years, by the way. We have brought in some players that Arsenal fans were kind of like, not too sure, the Ramsdales, the Ben Whites, the Tomiyasus. But I think that's more down to the fact that maybe we don't watch, some fans don't watch, football outside of watching Premier League, which does happen. But there's been some really positive signings. I think the only one that some Arsenal fans are kind of take a bit of a, not disliking to, that's a bit harsh, but he's probably not shown enough, is probably someone like Fabio Vieira, which I've not been too impressed personally. I don't think it's so much to do with people mention the physicality, for example, but Bernardo Silva's not built like a brick, something, you know what? And he's a very, very good footballer. So in terms of it's a big, in short, this summer's going to be critical. It really, really will be. Just purely, again, like I said before, we're back in the Champions League. So, and if Arsenal can actually pull their finger out and if you can't get your plan A, you better make sure you got a plan B.
Yeah. Interesting. Very, very interesting. The question for you, Chris, actually, I'll find this one to you. Question: with the rumours of us being linked with Rafinha, who would you prefer? Rafinha with Prem experience or a younger, unproven in the league Diaby?
It's a great question, and weirdly, N9NE must have been in my WhatsApp today because I was saying the exact same thing about this today. Personally, I don't think Rafinha would cost 80 million, if I'm honest, especially with the financial troubles of Barca. I don't think he'd be that much. However, if you push me, I think Diaby's probably got a higher ceiling than Rafinha, as in he could be incredible. But it's also useful to point out that I think Rafinha's 25, 26. He's Premier League experienced, and of course he's Brazilian. So I don't think Rafinha would be a bad signing at all. And if you were pushing me for one of the two, I think I'd be more excited by Diaby. But I think that Rafinha would prove to be a better signing for us in terms of money. And also the fact that we know he's going to hit the ground running because he knows the league. And he played fantastically well in a very poor Leeds side. So, imagine what Eddie Howe could do with him. Yeah, I think we'd see an even better Rafinha than what we saw last time.
Definitely. Great stuff.
What about you, Pete?
For me, I want Diaby. Longevity, younger player. I've not got no issues with him adjusting to Premier League football. I actually think his style is very suited to the Premier League. But Rafinha, for the reasons you said, I think he would hit the ground running. I think he'd be a great alternative for the Premier League. He's had a decent season at Barcelona, to be fair.
Imagine them samba dancers if we scored, Pete.
Yeah, you throw the Brazilian mix into it. You sprinkle that Brazilian dust on the likes of Bruno and Joelinton that's already there, and those three would have some fun. You see what Bruno Guimaraes has done with Miggy this season on that right hand side. Just imagine Rafinha in there, who will know from the Brazilian squad. They'd be able to mix it up. There's no doubt about it. A few more questions we'll throw at Albert before we wrap up for today. Good one from Drum, actually. I would like to know if Arsenal fans look at us as an actual or actual rivals. Interesting.
For me personally, 100%. You can't ignore this season unless you've been watching it from behind a rock. So yeah, listen, like I said, it's not just about spending bucket loads of money. You've been shrewd in some of the guys you've bought, and to be honest, some of the guys that maybe even been there before Eddie Howe come. And you know, I just in short, yeah, I definitely rivals. And like I said, next season is going to be a huge season because we talk about it when the season's already gone. Teams are going to strengthen, teams are going to look to improve, and you know, it's about, I always say the key thing is always strengthening from a position of strength. Arsenal, unfortunately, for me, at times haven't done that. We didn't do it last season in January when pushing for a top four, and it cost us. You know, someone mentioned it earlier, sort of in terms of the question previously. I think with Arsenal, obviously, it's about getting back into Champions League, but we've also gone in for a title race as well. So the expectation is risen even more. But yeah, Newcastle definitely, man, 100% need to be watched. Need to watch out.
A few quick fire ones. Craig Lee just put, is it true? Is it true, or do you feel Arsenal struggle in the big games, the important ones, from an Arsenal perspective? What do you think?
Great question. It was documented for quite a number of years. Arsenal's away record, particularly against the top 5 or 6, it was awful. We just couldn't buy a win away from home. That has gradually improved in the last couple of seasons. You know, a double over Tottenham for the first time in 10 years. We took 6 points off of Chelsea. We took 4 points off Liverpool. City's the one we still can't seem to get anything. Don't think we beat them in 11 now, but yeah, it was a thing that it's a great question. It's a really, really bugged me as an Arsenal fan. I was going to use a stronger word, but I won't do that on your guys' channel. But yeah, it was about competing in these big games because, you know, like I say, Arsenal are a big club, and if you want to talk about standards and, you know, the great players you had from before, but you need to perform in the big games, man. Arsenal weren't doing that for a number of times. But gradually, if you look at those games in a portion, Arsenal have got better. But Man City is obviously the one that we need to go and try and get a win there.
Have you been to a Champions League game away from home? And if so, which was the best one?
No, I've not. I'm not. You know what? Because I'm not fortunate enough to get away tickets for Arsenal because it's quite hard, to be honest with you. Yeah, especially this season. Surprise, surprise. But I could talk about home games, but yeah, the away days, not Champions League, but domestically, Villa away, brilliant.
Excellent. Question for Albert: who's the greatest Arsenal player they've seen in their lifetime?
Ooh. God, how long have you got for that question? I could give about half an hour. No, I mean, I could just, there's so many, Pete. It's hard. DB10, man. Ben Dennis, technically, what a baller. That goal in the '98 World Cup for Holland against Argentina, that's Dennis Bergkamp. And obviously we've got a statue outside the stadium with that goal against Leicester. That fantastic goal. But for me,
I was waiting for you to mention that goal against us, Albert.
I was waiting for it. Okay, yeah. I'm unbelievable. Just such a technician. But for me, young black kid growing up is Ian Wright by 100 country mile. And for anyone, I always say to people, if you never saw him play, just go and watch Premier League 100 goals. And Ian Wright was a serious striker, man. It's just a shame at the time he competed with the likes of Les Ferdinand and Shearer and Robbie Fowler. Yeah. So he never got many England caps as he should have got.
Teddy Sheringham throw in there.
Yeah, Teddy.
It was like Stan Collymore, and there was so many other. We had a huge pool of Robbie Fowler, flipping out. Yeah. He keep going like he had a pool of players.
But of course, Henry. You know what's funny, Pete, and the thing is that obviously he played for us, Henry. But sometimes I was watching like clips or when you like games you used to play, you think to yourself, you know, I knew this guy was good, but Jesus Christ, man, this guy was a serious footballer. Yeah. Incredible.
It was crazy. This is a really good one from the last couple. This is a really good one from PDK. If the Queen hadn't have died when she did, God bless her soul, would the Arsenal versus Man City game have been a different outcome?
That's a great question.
Great question.
Because originally, I think that game was scheduled for, October. I'm sure it was. It's hard to say, you know. It's hard to say because I'm trying to think off the top of my head what the points difference was then, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure, you know, to be honest. I'm not sure. Because what can you do? I think, the game's supposed to be in October last year, but no, we end up playing it in February. So it's quite a big gap. So yeah, it's what can you do? What can you do?
Yeah, me and Chris, we had ours with West. We were meant to have played West Ham away when the Queen passed, and then we had it more recently and smashed them 5-1. So we're very happy with where it got moved to. We're very, very happy with that. I think Lawless will have a different opinion. And look, we'll end it sort of on this one before I get your predictions.
Pete, just before we end it, can we do one more? Because there's one on Mark Todd, which I'd love to ask.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, of course. If someone came in with a big offer for Saka, do you think he would leave Arsenal?
In short, no. I think he'll sign the contract at the end of the season. But you haven't said that, Pete. You know what? That's been spoken about. Maybe there's waiting to see what Arsenal will do at the end of the season. But I do think he'll stay.
Okay. Chris, far away, fella. Go for it.
I've seen this one earlier and I thought, oh, what a question. So Mark Todd asks, Albert, when Newcastle played at the Emirates, did you really see it as time wasting, as a lot of Arsenal fans did, or did you think it was good time management?
No.
The time wasting thing's a problem in the Premier League, regardless. It does. I don't think it even matters to that game. But no, it wasn't. Like, it's funny because I think some Arsenal fans were driving me mad after the game. So I was at that game actually. It's Newcastle come out and play. I said, look, I'm not a Newcastle fan, but Newcastle fans, you guys will testify where you was leaking goals left, right, and centre. You're not going to come to the Emirates with the football Arsenal were playing and come and open up. You've got a good defensive record for a reason. I didn't understand it. I don't get me wrong, the referee was bloody awful in that game, but I think Arsenal lost it emotionally in that game for me personally.
Yeah.
No, I thought Arteta, because wasn't that the game? Correct me if I'm wrong. When
went mad for he thought it was a penalty when it wasn't. He was going mad. Like, I think he had to go at Howe, and Howe wasn't even doing anything. He was like, "What? What's going on?"
Yeah, he was flipping on the sideline. Then after the game, he said, "I don't understand that Newcastle haven't played like that all season," and it's like, yeah, but we're playing against the league leaders at their grounds.
Yeah. The key point. I know it's crazy. It's crazy.
But and I said this at the time to Potts, and Potts I think was emotional as well. And he weren't thinking straight. He was fine afterwards. But I said, what do you expect from Newcastle? What do you expect from us?
Exactly.
You want us to open up so you can win 4-0? That's fine. We're not going to do that. This team are built differently, so we tried to open up. It wasn't like a lot of teams that have gone to the Emirates this season, and like Southampton, for example, it just sit on the 18-yard box and go try and break us down. It wasn't like that. We did try and get out. We had one or two opportunities, but it was just the fact that you guys were so good and you pushed us back that we then had to try and stay as a unit as solid as we possibly could. So. One of those things. Any other? One last question, if there is one, Chris.
Yeah. Okay. So Tom Dixon asks, how many do you think will be showing the exit door at Arsenal this summer, Albert?
Great question. Arsenal need to be ruthless. I'm not one of them people that we've got a lot in our fans. Just sentimental FC. Like, no, some of the players are just not good enough. I mean, top of my head, if I'm going to go through it quickly. And
Tom Dixon also asks, same question really, in a different way. Where do Arsenal need to strengthen in the summer? So what are the key positions where you go, we need to upgrade him?
I think in terms of, we might have to look at a right back, to be honest with you. I think the Tomiyasu thing, his injury record has been, since his first injury, we just cannot keep that guy fit. So they're going to have to look at that area. Centrally, if I was being really, really greedy, and Arsenal need to be ambitious, get Caicedo and get Declan Rice. And forward-wise, you know what? Jesus can play anywhere across the front three. And, you know, I think Arsenal do need to look for a striker. And for me, they're not easy to get. You have to pay a king's ransom. But you know what? I don't bloody care. Just there's an obvious candidate. Whether Arsenal can do business with someone like Napoli, who are a very difficult club to negotiate with, and they're going to win. They've won the Scudetto. They almost won it, or whatever. But yeah, so central midfield, definitely a right back, and we need to go and get a hitman. And yeah, in terms of leaving, Fabio Vieira probably got 1 season for me. Lukonga's on that out on loan, not sure. Rob
Albert,
Holding.
if Caicedo and Rice were to come in, which of the central midfielders come out? I mean, I'm assuming Ødegaard's not going to. Xhaka has had a great season. Is it Partey for you, or are you just talking squad depth as in you'd have them all, but just rotate?
You know what I want? I think the problem at Arsenal is there's not enough competition in every position. So it shouldn't be a case of, if you have an inconsistent game, you're in next week. No, there needs to be pressure applied. As good as I love Saka, but listen, there should be games where he should be looking over his shoulder thinking, you know what, Reece Nelson's, he's on fire. I might not get back into the team, or we bring in another player up in my position. That it needs to be like that at Arsenal. It needs to be a culture where these guys don't get comfortable. For me, even I'll give you an example. As well as Xhaka has done this season, I would still upgrade on him. Needs to be ruthless. Needs to be.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, we need to do the same.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we need to be ruthless too. So I think we're in a very, very similar boat. But guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Albert, superb debut on the show. That is for sure, and lots of the chat have given you massive respect for coming on. Great questions, great knowledge as always. I know that because I've been on you before, but it's been great to have you on the channel, and definitely, like someone else put in the chat earlier, it'd be great to have you and Potts back again. Maybe in the summer as we talk about our team's assault on the Champions League. I'm sure we'll sort something out. That's for sure. Massive thanks to everyone in the chat. 140 in the chat right now, but we've only got like 70 likes. So just make sure that you hit that like on the way out. Subscribe to the channel, and as well, plug Albert. Where can we find you?
Pete, I'm here, there, and everywhere. I've been a podcast something which I'm not going to repeat, but I've got my own channel, Albert JTV. You'll see me on Potsy's channel, Talk Man Podcast. Same about Arsenal. You'll see me on Lee Judge's TV. I'm here, there, and everywhere. I've been fortunate, man. Lucky to have got do some good opportunities and gigs, man. I was supposed to be on Radio 5 Live, but they ran out of time yesterday, man. It's mad. Many things happening, but that's where you'll find me. Thanks for having me on, man. Pleasure, absolute pleasure, man, to meet you guys. No
problem at always. And huge thanks to everyone in the chat. Superb questions. Apologies if we didn't get all through all of them. We got through about 95% of them tonight. We will try and make sure we get through them all next time. And look, just before we go, we have to give our thanks to the sponsors, of course. Thank you to Russ and the team at the radiatorshed.com. Making sure that we support his business, and the aluminium rads are very, very environmentally friendly and are perfect for heat source pumps. They offer a home survey service and will install if required. And look, just checking out some of his new radiator gear that's out, and there's more to come. So we're here, and look, Russ as well with our very own Mr. Callum Wilson. So look, if the radiator shed's good enough for Big Cow, it's good enough for us. So get involved, that's for sure. And our other partner, Northeast Partnership, alongside Rush as well, the Install Works. Make sure we get involved in that as well if that is your need. I will just give a massive plug to our newest sponsor, the Bathroom Design Co. They are a huge new sponsor that have been, a big support to the channel. And you can find them, the Northeast's largest suppliers at Vilroyd and Bosch Bathroom, where Team Valley Gateshead, over 20 years established, ran by the family. So make sure you get down to the showrooms on 11th Avenue, Team Valley Estate, Gateshead. And of course, make sure you get involved, and you can see the quality, as we've shown you many a time, of what they are capable of, and they are top quality as well. So get involved in that also. If you haven't checked the show out with the Newcastle United Supporters Trust, check that out. Some great questions, some great answers as well tonight. And of course, click the likes and subscribes on the way out, and make sure you click and subscribe to Albert's channel, to 12th Man Pod, because there'll be plenty of content going around there as well. So at that point, I want to say massive thanks to Mr. Brandy and Blaze, the other half, Chris Hall, top man as always. When we're on away days together, absolutely spot on. And Albert, massive thank you again. Look, before we go, prediction for the game.
Oh God, you score lots of goals. We can see lots of goals, so it'll probably be 0-0, Pete. No, it won't be. If my head is telling me we'll get a draw, but I think my heart telling me I think we'll lose 2-1.
Okay, both Arsenal boys gone for a loss. Is that a good omen? Does it mean that we're going to get those 3 points? We need 7 to secure Champions League football. We'll be talking about it on the reaction show on Loaded Mag and NUFC. But until then, we do love playing away, guys. How'd you like that?
Drink it.